We continue with Holy Bible reading to request divine union. Theosis part 123, Wisdom of Sirach of the Old Testament. This is after the Wisdom of Solomon. We have Wisdom of Sirach. The author of this is Jesus ben Sirach. He was a Jewish scribe who was apparently an instructor to a Jewish academy, probably in Jerusalem, where he taught religion and ethics. It's about 180 BC. So it was between Alexander the Great and the Maccabees. Chapter 1, the prologue. This is not chapter 1, it's the prologue. Of the many great things given to us through the law and the prophets, and through others who followed them, we shall praise Israel for instruction and wisdom. Not only should those who read gain understanding, but also those who love learning should be able to help outsiders understand, both through speaking and writing. Thus my grandfather, Jesus, especially devoted himself to reading the law and the prophets and other books of the fathers. So he acquired sufficient skill in these, and himself was led to write something fitting for instruction and wisdom, that lovers of learning might become involved in these things as well, and especially in addition to this, might live a life according to the law. Therefore you are encouraged to read with good will and attention, and to do your reading with allowance made in cases where, although we worked hard in translating, we may seem to render a phrase inadequately, for there was said in Hebrew in itself does not have equal force when it is translated into another language. Not only thus, but also the law itself and the prophets and the rest of the books differ not a little as originally spoken. For when I arrived in Egypt in the 38th year of the reign of King Everyetis, that's a Greek name, meaning he who is very generous, Everyetis, and spent some time there, I found a book filled with instruction. Thus I made it a necessity for myself to apply some diligence and loving labor to the translation of this book. So I employed my skill day and night to complete and publish it for the lovers of learning, who live in a foreign land and have prepared themselves beforehand to live according to the law. So obviously he translated this from Greek to Hebrew. Background says Jesus ben Sirach wrote his lectures down in the manuscript. That manuscript, written in Hebrew, got very little circulation until his grandson translated it into Greek. Then, about 3 centuries later, a translation was made into the Syriac from the Hebrew text. Ben Sirach is well acquainted with the law and the prophets, and according to chapter 1, 11-20, wisdom comes from a blessed, joyful reverence for and knowledge of God. Okay. Now, chapter 1, wisdom is from the Lord. All wisdom comes from the Lord and is with him forever. Who can count the sands of the seas and drops of rain in the days of eternity? Who can search out the height of heaven, the breadth of the earth, the abyss, and wisdom? Wisdom was created before all things, and the insight of prudence was from eternity. To whom was the root of wisdom? To whom has the root of wisdom been revealed, and who has come to know her great deeds? There is one who is wise and is fearing exceedingly, he who sits upon his throne. The Lord himself created wisdom, and saw and numbered her, and poured her out in all his works, in the midst of all flesh according to his gift, and he provided her for those who love him. The fear of the Lord. The fear of the Lord is glory and boasting, and gladness and a crown of rejoicing. The fear of the Lord will cheer the heart, and will give gladness, joy, and long life. For those who fear the Lord, it shall be well to the utmost, and on the day of his death he will be blessed. The beginning of wisdom is the fear of the Lord. And she was joined with the faithful in the womb. She constructed a fountain for life among men, and will be trusted among their seed. The gratification of wisdom is to fear the Lord, and she intoxicates them with her fruits. She will fill every house of theirs with objects of desire, and their storehouses with her harvest. The fear of the Lord is the crown of wisdom, making peace and soundness of health and to flourish. The Lord saw and numbered her, and poured out the power of comprehension. And he exalted the glory of those who hold fast to her. The root of wisdom is to fear the Lord, and her branches are length of days. Warnings to the wise. Unjust anger cannot be justified, for anger's decisive influence causes his fall. A patient man will hold fast until the proper time, then afterwards gladness shall burst forth from him. He shall conceal his words until the proper time, and the lips of many will tell of his understanding. And the treasures of wisdom are the parables of knowledge. But godliness is an abomination to a sinner. If you desire wisdom, keep the commandments, and the Lord will supply it to you. For the fear of the Lord is wisdom and instruction, and his good pleasure is faith and gentleness. Do not disobey the fear of the Lord, and do not come to him with a divided heart. Do not be a hypocrite in the sight of men, and be careful with your lips. Do not exalt yourself, lest you fall, and bring dishonor to your soul. The Lord shall reveal your secrets, and in the midst of the assembly he will strike you down, because you did not come in the fear of the Lord, and your heart was full of deceit. Chapter 2. God's faithfulness and mercy. My son, if you draw near to serve the Lord, prepare your soul for temptation. Set your heart right to be steadfast, and do not strive anxiously in distress. Cleave to him and do not fall away, that you may be honored at the end of your life. Accept whatever is brought upon you, and in exchange for your humiliation be patient, because gold is tested in fire, and acceptable men in the furnace of abasement. Believe in him, and he will help you. Make your way straight and hope in him. You who fear the Lord, wait for his mercy, and do not turn aside lest you fall. You who fear the Lord, believe in him, and your reward will not fail. You who fear the Lord, hope for good things, and for everlasting gladness and mercy. Consider the ancient generations and see, who believed in the Lord and was put to shame, or who stood fast in his fear and was forsaken, or who called upon him and was overlooked. Because the Lord is compassionate and merciful, he forgives sins and saves in time of affliction. Woe to cowardly hearts and weakened hands, and to a sinner who walks on two paths. Woe to a fainted heart, because it does not believe. Therefore it will not be sheltered. Woe to you who have lost your patient endurance. What will you do when the Lord visits you? Those who fear the Lord will not disobey his words, and those who love him will keep his ways. Those who fear the Lord will seek his approval, and those who love him will be filled with the law. Those who fear the Lord will prepare their hearts, and will humble their souls before him, and will fall into the hands of the Lord and not into the hands of men, for as his majesty, so is his mercy. Chapter 3. Honoring parents. Give heed to me, O children, for I am your father, and do what I tell you, that you may be saved. For the Lord honored the father over the children, and strengthened the judgment of the mother over her sons. He who honors his father atones for his sins, and he who honors his mother is like one who stores up treasure. He who honors his father will be gladdened by his own children, and when he prays will be heard. He who honors his father will have a long life, and he who obeys the Lord will give rest to his mother. And he will serve his parents as his masters. Honor your father and mother in word and deed, and that the blessing may come upon you from him. For the blessing of a father establishes the houses of the children, but the curse of a mother uproots their foundations. Do not glory in the dishonor of your father, for your father's dishonor is no glory to you. For the glory of a man is from the honor of his father, and it is a disgrace for children to dishonor their mother. My son, help your father in his old age, and do not grieve him in his life. And if his understanding fails, be considerate, and do not dishonor him in your prime. For kindness to a father will not be forgotten, and it will be credited to you instead of your sins. It will be remembered in the day of your affliction. Thus your sins will melt away like frost in warm weather. He who forsakes his father is like a blasphemer, and he who provokes his mother to wrath is cursed by God. Wisdom at work. My son, accomplish your works with gentleness, and you will be loved by people the Lord accepts. The greater you are, the more humble you must be, and you will find grace before the Lord, because great is the power of the Lord, and he is honored by the humble. Do not seek things too difficult for you, nor examine what is beyond your strength. Think about what is commanded you, for you do not need what the Lord keeps hidden. Do not meddle in what is none of your business, for things beyond human insight have been shown to you. Speculation has led many astray, and evil supposition has caused their minds to slip and fall. Keep a soft heart. A hard heart will suffer ruin in the end, and he who loves danger will perish in it. A hard heart will be weighed down with pains, and the sinner will add sin to sin, and there is no healing to aid an arrogant man. For a plant of evil has taken root in him. The heart of an intelligent man will ponder a parable, and the ear of a pupil is a wise man's desire. Water will quench a blazing fire, and almsgiving will atone for sins. He who repays kindness is mindful of the hereafter, and at the time of his fall he will find support. Chapter 4. Care of the poor and needy. My son, do not deprive the poor of his living, and do not keep eyes in need waiting. Do not grieve a soul who is hungry, nor provoke to anger a man in despair. Do not trouble a heart that was made resentful, and do not put off the gift of a man in need. Do not reject a suppliant who is afflicted, nor turn your face away from a poor man. Do not turn your eye away from a needy man, and do not give a man occasion to curse you. For if he curses you in the bitterness of his soul, his master will hear his prayer. Make yourself beloved in the assembly, and bow your head to a great man. Incline your ear to a poor man, and answer him peacefully and with gentleness. Deliver a person who has been wronged from the hand of the wrongdoer, and do not be faint-hearted when you judge his case. Be like a father to orphans, and like a husband to their mother, and you will be like a son to the Most High, and he will love you more than your mother. Pursuit of wisdom. Wisdom exalts her children and lays hold of those who seek her. Whoever loves her loves life, and those who come to her early in the morning will be filled with gladness. He who holds fast to her will inherit glory, and the Lord blesses every place she enters. Those who serve her will minister to the Holy One, and the Lord loves those who love her. He who obeys her will judge the nations, and he that gives heed to her will live with confidence. If he trusts in her, he will inherit her, and his posterity will be in possession of her. At first she will walk with him on disturbing paths and bring fear and dread upon him, and she will torment him with her discipline until she can trust his soul and test him with her ordinances. Then she will come straight back to him and will gladden him and reveal her secrets to him. If he wanders away, she will forsake him and hand him over to his ruin. Shame and sin. Watch for a proper opportunity and keep yourself from evil, and do not bring shame upon your soul. For there is a shame that brings sin, and there is a shame which is glory and grace. Do not show partiality to someone to your own harm, and do not let your respect for another cause you to fail. Do not withhold a word in time of need, for wisdom is made known by a word, and instruction by a word of the tongue. Do not speak against the truth, and do not be put to shame by your ignorance. Do not be ashamed to confess your sins, and do not exercise force against the current of a river. Do not subject yourself to a foolish man, and do not show partiality to a ruler. Fight to the death for the truth, and the Lord will fight for you. Do not be rash with your tongue, and sluggish and neglectful in your works. Do not be like a lion in your home, and act in pretense with your servants. Do not let your hand be extended to receive, and shut when you should repay. Chapter 5. God is the Lord. Do not set your heart upon your possessions, and do not say, I am independent. Do not follow yourself and your strength, so as to walk in the desires of your heart. Do not say, who will be Lord over me, for the Lord will surely punish you. Do not say, I sinned, so what happened to me? For the Lord is patient. And do not be so confident of atonement that you add sin to sin. And do not say, his compassion is great, and he will atone for the multitude of my sins. For both mercy and wrath come from him. His anger rests on sinners. Do not delay to turn to the Lord, and do not put it off from day to day, for suddenly the wrath of the Lord will come forth, and in the day of vengeance you will perish. Do not set your heart on dishonest wealth, for it will profit you nothing in the day of distress. Control of the tongue. Do not winnow with every wind, and do not follow every road, for a double-tongued sinner is of such a kind. Be established in your understanding, and let your word be consistent. Be quick to listen, and give your answers with patience. If you have understanding, answer your neighbor, but if not, let your hand be over your mouth. There is glory and dishonor in speech, and a man's tongue may cause him to fall. Do not be called a slanderer, and do not lie in ambush with your tongue, for shame awaits a thief, and a grievous condemnation will come upon a double-tongued man. In a great or in a small matter, do not go wrong. Chapter 6. Do not be an enemy instead of a friend, for a bad name brings shame and disgrace, and a double-tongued sinner is of such a kind. Do not exalt yourself with your own counsel, lest your soul be torn in pieces as by a bull. You will devour your leaves and lose your fruit, and be left like a withered tree. An evil soul will destroy him who possesses it, and make him an object of malignant joy to his enemies. Friendships. Pleasant speech will multiply his friends, and a gracious tongue will multiply many kind greetings. Let those who live at peace with you be many, and let your counselors be the one in 1,000. If you gain a friend, gain him in testing, and do not be in a hurry to trust him, for there is a friend who is such to his own advantage, but he will not remain beside you in the day of your affliction. There is also a friend who changes into an enemy, and will reveal a quarrel to your disgrace. Again, there is a friend who is a companion at table, but will not stand by you in your day of trouble. Further, when you prosper, he will be like you, and speak boldly to your servants. But if you are brought low, he will be against you, and will hide himself under your presence. Stay away from your enemies, and hold on to your friends. A faithful friend is a strong shelter, and he who finds one finds treasure. There is nothing that can take the place of a faithful friend, and there is no way to measure his worth. A faithful friend is a medicine of life, and those who fear the Lord will find him. He who fears the Lord guides his friendship rightly, because as he is, so also is his neighbor. Instruction brings wisdom. My son, from your youth up, choose instruction, and you will find wisdom also unto old age. Come to her as one who plows and sows, and wait expectantly for her good fruits. For in her work you will labor a little while, then you will quickly eat of her fruit. She is very harsh on the undisciplined, and on the one who lacks the heart to continue with her. She will be like a heavy stone of trial upon him, and he will not delay to throw her off. For wisdom is like her name, and is not manifest to many. Listen, my son, and accept my judgment, and do not reject my advice. Put your feet into her fetters, and your neck into her collar. Put your shoulder under her, and carry her, and do not be angry with her bonds. Come to her with all your soul, and keep her ways with all your strength. Search for her and seek her out, and she will become known to you. And when you become self-controlled, do not let her go. For in the end you will find her rest, and she will turn to you in gladness. Then her fetters will be as strong as protection for you, and her collar a glorious robe. For there is a golden adornment upon her, and her bonds are a blue thread. You will wear her as a glorious robe, and put her on yourself as a crown of exceeding joy. If you are willing, my son, you will be taught, and if you apply yourself, you will be prudent. If you love to listen, you will wait with anticipation, and if you incline your ear, you will be wise. Stand in an assembly of elders, who is wise, attach yourself to him. Desire to listen to every divine narrative, and do not let proverbs of understanding escape you. If you see a man who has understanding, rise early in the morning, and let your foot wear out the threshold of his door. Set your mind on the ordinance of the Lord, and practice his commandments, and he will strengthen your heart continually, and the desire for wisdom will be given to you. Chapter 7. Put away evil acts. Do no evil things, and evil will never overtake you. Stay away from wrongdoing, and it will turn away from you. My son, do not sow on the furrows of wrongdoing, and you will not reap the same thing sevenfold. Do not seek authority from a lord, or the seat of honor from a king, and do not declare yourself righteous before a lord, nor play the wise man before a king. Do not try to be a judge, if you will not be strong enough to remove wrongdoing, lest you respect the presence of the powerful and compromise your integrity. Do not sin against the population of a city, nor disgrace yourself before the people. Do not repeat your sin, for you will not be unpunished even for one. Do not say, he will look upon the multitude of my gifts, and when I bring an offering to God Most High, he will accept it. Do not be faint-hearted in your prayer, and do not neglect to do alms. Do not laugh at a man who is in bitterness of soul, for there is one who humbles and exalts. Do not devise a lie against your neighbor, nor do the same against a friend. Do not desire to tell any lie, for the habit of lying never does any good. Do not talk idly in the assembly of the elders, and do not repeat yourself in prayer. Farm and family. Do not hate hard work, especially farming, which was created by the Most High. Do not number yourself among an assembly of sinners. Remember that wrath will not tarry long. Humble yourself greatly, for the punishment of the ungodly is fire and worms. Do not exchange a friend for money, nor a genuine brother for the gold of Ophir. Do not ignore a wise and good wife, for her grace is worth more than gold. Do not mistreat a servant who does his work in truth, nor a hired worker who devotes himself to you. Let your soul love an intelligent servant, and do not deprive him of his freedom. Do you have cattle? Take care of them. And if they are profitable to you, keep them. Do you have children? Correct them, and make them obey from their youth. Do you have daughters? Watch carefully over their chastity, and do not be too easy on them. Give a daughter in marriage, and you will have completed a great work. But give her to a man of understanding. Do you have a wife after your own heart? Do not reject her. But do not trust yourself to a wife who you disregard. Honor your father with all your heart, and do not forget the birth pangs of your mother. Remember that you were begotten through them, and what can you give back to them to the degree they gave to you? The priests and the poor. Fear the Lord with all your soul, and honor his priests. Love him who made you, and do not forsake his ministers. Fear the Lord and honor his priests, and give them their portion as commanded. The first fruits, the trespass offspring, the gift of the shoulder offering, the sacrifice of sanctification, and the first fruits of the holy things. Stretch forth your hand to the poor, that your blessing may be complete. Let the kindness of giving be shown in the presence of all the living, and do not withhold kindness from the dead. Do not withdraw yourself from those who weep, and mourn with those who mourn. And do not hesitate to visit a sick man, for by such visits you will be loved. With all your words remember the time you will die, and you will never sin. Chapter 8. Kings and Commoners. Do not contend sharply with the powerful man, lest you fall into his hands. Do not quarrel with the rich man, lest you resist your force. Lest he resist your force. For gold had destroyed many and perverted the hearts of kings. Do not contend sharply with a talkative man, and do not heap wood on his fire. Do not jest with an uncultivated man, lest your forefathers be insulted. Do not insult a man who turns away from sin. Remember that we are all valuable. Do not dishonor a man in his old age, for some of us are growing old as well. Do not rejoice over any dead person. Remember that we all must die. Do not disregard a saying of the wise, but be conversant with their proverbs, because from them you will gain instruction, and how to serve noble people. And do not miss a saying of the old, for they themselves learned from their fathers, because from them you will gain understanding and be able to give an answer in time of need. Do not kindle the coals of a sinner, for you may be burned by his flame. Do not let the presence of an insolent man arouse you from your seat, lest he lie in wait as an ambush against your words. Do not lend to a man stronger than you, but if you do, consider it lost. Do not give surety beyond your ability to pay, but if you do give surety, be as careful as one who has to pay. Do not go to law against a judge, for they will decide for him because of his reputation. Do not travel on a journey with a reckless man, lest he weighs you down, for he will do his will, and you will perish with him in his folly. Do not cause a fight with an angry man. Do not go into a lonely place with him, because murder is as nothing in his eyes. And where there is no help, he will strike you down. Do not consult with a fool, for he will not keep a matter confidential. Do nothing confidential in the presence of a stranger, for you do not know what he will give birth to. Do not open your heart to everyone, lest unkindness be shown to you. Chapter 9. Behavior with women. Do not be jealous of the wife of your bosom, so teach her an evil lesson about yourself. Do not give your soul to a woman and let her trample on your strength. Do not meet with a woman who is a courtesan, lest you fall into her snares. Do not associate with a dancing girl, lest you be caught in her schemes. Do not gaze at a virgin, lest you stumble and pay damages for her. Do not give your soul to prostitutes, lest you destroy your inheritance. Do not look around in the streets of a city, and do not wander about in its deserted sections. Turn your eye away from a woman with a shapely figure, and do not gaze at beauty belonging to another. Many have been led astray by the beauty of a woman. An erotic love is like a burning fire. Never dine with another man's wife, and do not share in parties with her over wine, lest your soul turn aside to her, and you slip, and your spirit fall into destruction. Friends and neighbors, do not forsake an old friend, for a new one is not equal with him. A new friend is like new wine. Drink it with pleasure only after it ages. Do not envy the honor given a sinner, for you do not know what his end will be. Do not delight in the pleasure of the ungodly. Remember, they will not be declared righteous even in Hades. Keep far away from a man who has the power to kill, and you will not be anxious about the fear of death. But if you come near to him, do not offend him, lest he take away your life. Know that you are stepping in the midst of snares and walking about the battlements of a city. Evaluate your neighbors as best you can and consult with those who are wise. Let your reasoning be with those who are wise, and let all your talk be about the law of the Most High. Let righteous men be your dinner companions, and let your boasting be in the fear of the Lord. Wise leaders. A work will be praised for the skill of its craftsman, and a wise leader of people for the skill of his words. A talkative man is regarded with fear in a city, and a man who is reckless in his speech will be hated. Chapter 10. A wise leader will educate his people, and the rule of the intelligent man will be well ordered. As goes the leader of the people, so also are his officials, and all the inhabitants of a city will reflect its ruler. An undisciplined king will ruin his people, but a city will be made habitable through the wisdom of its rulers. The authority of the earth is in the hand of the Lord, and he will raise up the right hand for an appointed time. The success of a man is in the hand of the Lord, and he confers his honor upon the person of the scribe. Do not cherish anger against your neighbor for any injury, and do nothing by acts of insolence. Beware of arrogance. Arrogance is hateful before God and man, and wrongdoing is offensive to both. Dominion is transferred from nation to nation because of wrongdoing, insolence, and wealth. How can he who is earth and ashes be arrogant? Because even while living, his insides are decaying. A physician scoffs at a long illness, and a king today will also die tomorrow. When a man dies, he will inherit reptiles, wild animals, and worms. The beginning of a man's arrogance is to depart from the Lord, for his heart withdraws from one who created him. For the beginning of arrogance is sin, and he who takes hold of it will pour out an abomination. Therefore the Lord will bring them extraordinary distress and completely destroy them. The Lord pulls down the thrones of rulers and seats the gentle in their place. The Lord plucks out the roots of nations and plants the humble in their place. The Lord overthrows the lands of the nations and destroys them to the foundations of the earth. He removes some of them and destroys them, and puts an end to their memory on the earth. Arrogance was not created by mankind, nor fierce anger by the offspring of women. Honor and dishonor. What kind of seed is honored? The seed of man. What kind of seed is honored? Those who fear the Lord. What kind of seed is dishonored? The seed of man. What kind of seed is dishonored? Those who transgress the commandments. Among brothers, their leader is honored, and those who fear the Lord are honored in his eyes. The fear of the Lord goes before the obtaining of authority. By roughness and pride is the losing thereof, and the rich and the honored and the poor alike, their boasting is the fear of the Lord. It is not right to dishonor an intelligent poor man, nor is it proper to honor a sinful man. The nobleman, the judge, and the ruler will be honored, but none of them is greater than the one who fears the Lord. Free men will render service to a wise servant, and an understanding man will not grumble. Do not put your wisdom on display when you do your work, nor magnify yourself in the time of your trouble. Better is he who works and has plenty than he who magnifies himself but has no bread. My son, honor your soul with gentleness, and give it honor according to its worth. Who will declare righteous the man who sins against his soul, and who will honor the man who dishonors his life? A poor man is honored for his knowledge, while a rich man is honored for his wealth. If a man is honored in poverty, how much more in wealth? And if a man is dishonored in wealth, how much more in poverty? Chapter 11. The wisdom of a humble man will exalt his head, and he will take his seat among the great. Outward appearances. Do not praise a man for his good looks, and do not detest one because of his appearance. The bee is small among winged creatures, but her fruit is first among sweet things. Do not boast about your fine clothes, nor magnify yourself in the day you are honored, because the works of the Lord are wondrous, and his works are hidden from men. Many tyrants have sat on the ground, but one never thought of has worn a crown. Many rulers have suffered exceeding disgrace, and honored men have been betrayed into the hands of others. Slow down. Do not find fault before you examine a situation. First understand it, and then make your judgment. Do not answer before you have listened, and do not interpret someone while he is talking. Do not argue about a matter that does not concern you, and do not sit together with sinners when they judge a case. My son, do not let your business involve too many things. If you multiply them, you will not remain unpunished, and if you pursue them, you will not overtake them, and you will not escape by running away. There is a man who works and keeps on working, but is in much more poverty. There is another who is sluggish and in need of help, and he lacks strength and abounds in poverty. But the eyes of the Lord look upon him for his good, and restores his well-being from his humble state. He raises up his head, and many are amazed at this. Handling riches, good and bad, life and death, poverty and wealth, these are from the Lord. The gift of the Lord remains with the godly, and his approval brings prosperity forever. There is a man who grows rich because of his attention and restraint, and this is the portion of his reward. When he says, I have found rest, and now I will partake in my good things, yet he does not know how much time will pass until he will die, and leave them behind to others. Stand by your covenant and attend to it, and grow old in your work. Do not be amazed at the works of the sinner, but trust in the Lord and remain at your work, because it is easy in the sight of the Lord to make a poor man rich quickly and unexpectedly. The blessing of the Lord is in the reward of a godly man, and in an instant he makes his blessing flourish. Do not say, what do I need, and what good things will be mine in the future. Do not say, I am independent, from now on, what will harm me? In the day of good things there is forgetfulness of bad things, and in the day of bad things there is no remembrance of good things. For it is easy in the judgment of the Lord to reward a man on the day of his death according to his ways. The ill treatment of an hour makes one forget luxury, and at the end of a man's life there shall be a revelation of his works. Consider no man happy before his death, and a man will be known in his children. Beware of evildoers. Do not bring every man into your home, for the plots of the deceitful are many. The heart of an arrogant man is like a decoy partridge in a cage, and like a spy he watches for your fall. For he lies in wait and turns good into evil, and he will attach blame to the good one chooses. For from a spark of fire, coal fire is kindled, and a sinful man lies in wait for bloodshed. Beware of an evildoer and his schemes, lest he bring lasting blame upon you. Receive a stranger into your home, and he will upset you with troubles, and alienate your family from you. Chapter 12, Showing Kindness. If you show kindness, know to whom you show it, and you shall be thanked for your good deeds. Do good to a godly man, and you will be repaid. If not by him, then certainly by the Most High. If there shall be no good things for him, there shall be no good things for him who continues in evil things, or for him who does not give alms cheerfully. Give to a godly man, but do not help the sinner. Do good to a humble man, but do not give to an ungodly man. Hold back his bread and do not give it to him, lest by it he lord it over you, for you will receive twice as much evil coming back, for all the good you did for him. For the Most High also hates sinners and will render punishment on the ungodly. Never trust an enemy. Give to the good man, but do not help the sinner. A friend will not be revealed when you are prosperous, nor will an enemy hide himself when you are in adversity. When a man prospers, his enemies are grieved, but when he is in adversity, even a friend will separate himself. Never trust your enemy, for as copper becomes rusty, so is his evil. Even if he acts humble and goes about with a humble posture, watch yourself and be on your guard. Then you shall be to him like him who wipes off a mirror, and you will know that it is not corroded continually. Do not let him stand by your side, lest he overthrow you and take your place. Do not seat him on your right, lest he seek your seat of honor. Then at last you will know the truth of my word, and because of my words you will be pierced with sorrow. Who will pity a snake charmer when he's bitten, or those who go near wild animals? So no one will pity one who approaches a sinful man and gets involved in his sins. He will stay with you for a while, but if you turn aside from him, he will not put up with you. An enemy speaks sweetly with his lips, but in his heart he will plan to throw you into a pit. An enemy will shed tears, but if he finds an opportunity, he will not be satisfied apart from shedding your blood. If evil comes upon you, you will find your enemy there ahead of you, and as he pretends to help you, he will pull your feet from under you. He will shake his head and applaud with his hands, and he will whisper many things and alter his expression. Chapter 13, Choosing Colleagues. Whoever touches pitch will be stained, and whoever associates with an arrogant man will be like him. Do not lift a weight too heavy for you, nor associate with a man stronger and richer than you. What does a clay pot have in common with a copper kettle? For the clay pot will strike against the kettle, and it will itself be broken. If a rich man does wrong and even proves himself to be the one wronged, a poor man is wronged and he must apologize. If you can be useful to him, a rich man will make use of you, but if you are in need, he will abandon you. If you own anything, he will live with you, and he will exalt you, but will not feel sorry for you. When he needs you, he will deceive you and smile at you, and he will give you hope and say good things to you. He will even say, "What do you need?" He will shame you with his foods until he exhausts you 2 or 3 times. Then at last he will mock you. If he should see you after this, he will forsake you and shake his head over you. Take heed lest you be led astray and be humiliated in your folly. When a ruler invites you more often, do not press upon him lest you be rejected, but do not withdraw at a distance lest you be forgotten. Do not intend to speak to him as an equal, and do not trust his abundance of words, for he will test you with a lot of talk, and while he is smiling he will scrutinize you. He who does not guard your words is unmerciful, and he will not hesitate to harm or imprison you. Keep your words to yourself and be very careful, for you are walking near your own fall. Like attracts like. Every living creature loves its like, and every man his neighbor. All flesh gathers together by species, and every man clings to one like himself. What wolf will associate with a lamb? No more will the sinner with a godly man. What peace is there between a hyena and a dog? And what peace does a rich man have with a poor man? The prey of lions or wild asses in the wilderness. Similarly, the pastures of the rich are the poor. Rich and poor. Lowness of stature is an abomination to the arrogant. Thus a poor man is an abomination to a rich man. When a rich man is shaken, he is strengthened by friends. But when a humble man falls, he is pushed away by friends. When a rich man falls, there are many to help him, and when he speaks abominable words, they justify him. If a humble man falls, they criticize him further, and when he speaks with intelligence, no place is given to him. When a rich man speaks, everyone is silent, and they exalt his words to the cloud. A poor man speaks, and they say, "Who is this man?" If he stumbles, they push him down even further. Wealth in which there is no sin is good, but poverty is evil in the mouth of an ungodly man. The heart of man changes the expression of his face, either for good or for evil. The mark of the heart filled with goodness is a cheerful face, but the invention of proverbs requires laborious reasoning. Chapter 14. Blessed is a man who does not slip and fall because of his mouth, and is not stung with pain caused by his sin. Blessed is he whose soul does not condemn him, and who has not fallen away from his hope. Wealth is not fitting for a small-minded man, and to what end is wealth for an envious man? For he who gathers for himself gathers for others, and others will live in luxury with his goods. If a man does evil to himself, for whom shall he do good? And he will not rejoice in his wealth. Warnings of vices. When a man envies himself, there is no one worse off, and this is the reward for his vice. Even if he does good, he does it unintentionally, and in the end he reveals his vice. He who envies with his eye is evil, and he turns his face away and despises souls. The eye of a greedy man is not satisfied with his share, and useless wrongdoing dries up the soul. The evil eye of a man is envious over his bread, thus it is lacking at his table. My son, whatever you have, treat yourself well, and offer sacrifices worthily to the Lord. Remember that death does not delay, and the covenant of Hades has not been shown to you. Before you die, do good to a friend, and reach out and give to him based on your ability. Do not let a day go by without doing something good, and do not let any of your desire for doing good escape you. You will not leave all your hard work to another. Will you not leave all your hard work to another, and all your hard work to be divided by lot? Give and receive, and deprive yourself, because in Hades there is nowhere to seek luxury. All flesh becomes old like a garment. For the covenant from of old is, you shall die by death. Like flourishing leaves on a thick tree, which seeds some leaves and puts forth other, which sheds some leaves and puts forth others, so also is a generation of flesh and blood. One dies and another is born. Every work of man decays and fails, and he who made it will depart with it. The blessings of wisdom. Blessed is the man who practices wisdom and discloses with insight. Whoever ponders the ways of wisdom in his heart will also reflect on her secrets. Pursue wisdom like a tracker and lie in wait on her paths. He who looks intently through her windows will also listen at her doors. He who lodges near her house will also fasten his tent peg to her walls. He will establish his home according to her will, and so lodge in a good dwelling place. He will put his children in her shelter and lodge under her branches. He will be sheltered by her from the burning heat and will dwell in her glory. Chapter 15. He who fears the Lord will do this, and he who holds fast to the law will obtain wisdom. She will come to meet him like a mother and accept him like the wife of one's youth. She will feed him the bread of understanding and give him the water of wisdom to drink. He will be supported by her and not fall, and will hold on to her and not be put to shame. She will exalt him alongside his neighbors, and in the midst of the assembly she will open his mouth. He will find gladness and a crown of rejoicing, and will inherit an everlasting name, but foolish men will not find her, and sinful men will not see her. And she is far from arrogant, and lying men will not keep in her mind. Praise is not proper in the mouth of a sinner, because it was not sent from the Lord, for praise should be spoken in wisdom, then the Lord will prosper it. Our sin is our fault. Do not say, I fell away because of the Lord, for he will not do that. He will not do what he hates. Do not say, it was he who led me astray, for he has no need of a sinful man. The Lord hates all abominations, and they are not loved by those who fear him. He himself created man in the beginning and left him in the counsel of his will. If you will keep his commandments, and faithfully do his good pleasure. He has set before you fire and water. If you will, stretch forth your hand. Life and death are before mankind, and whichever he chooses, it will be given to him. For great is the wisdom of the Lord. He is mighty in power and sees all things. His eyes are upon those who fear him, and he himself knows every deed of man. He has commanded no one to be ungodly, and he has given no one license to sin. Chapter 16. Ungodly children. Do not desire a multitude of useless children, nor rejoice in ungodly sons. If they multiply, do not rejoice over them. If the fear of the Lord is not in them, do not trust in their life, nor pay attention to their multitude. For one godly child is better than 1,000, and it is better to die childless than to have ungodly children. For from one child with wisdom a city will be filled with people, but a tribe of lawless men will make it desolate. My eyes have seen many such things, and my ear has heard worse things than this. Rebuke and mercy. In the congregation of sinners a fire will be kindled, and in a disobedient nation wrath is kindled. There was no atonement for the ancient giants who turned away from God because of their strength. He did not spare the cities where Lot sojourned, whom he detested because of their arrogance. He had no mercy on a nation destined for his destruction, who were taken away because of their sins. The same thing happened to the 600,000 foot soldiers who gathered together in their hardness of heart. Even if there was only one stiff-necked man, it would be a marvel if he were to remain unpunished. For mercy and wrath belong to the Lord, and he is mighty to forgive. And he pours out wrath. As great as his mercy, so also great is his rebuke, and he will judge a man according to his works. A sinner will not escape with his spoils, and the patience of a godly man will not fare badly. He will make a place for every act of mercy. Each will find this out according to his works. None remain anonymous. Do not say, I will be hidden from the Lord, and who will remember me from on high? I will not be known among so many people, for what is my soul in comparison to the immeasurable creation? Behold, heaven and the highest heaven, the abyss and the earth will be shaken by his visitation. At the same time, the mountains and the foundations of the earth will shake with trembling when he looks upon them. No heart will be able to think about these things, and who will ponder his ways? There will be a sudden blast of wind which no man will see, for most of his works will be done in secret. Who will proclaim his works of righteousness, or who will endure them? For his covenant is far off. This is what a man thinks who is diminished in heart and without discernment, who is deceived and thinks foolishly. Listen to me, my son, and gain knowledge, and pay close attention to my words in your heart. I will reveal instruction with balance, and I will proclaim knowledge with exactness. The majesty of creation. By the judgment of the Lord, his work exists from the beginning, and from their creation he determined their boundaries. He ordered his works forever, and their principles according to their generations. They neither hunger nor grow weary, and they do not cease from their works. Each does not afflict the one close to him, and they will never disobey his word. After this the Lord looked upon the earth and filled it with his good things. He covered its surface with the life of every living creature, and to it they will return again. Chapter 17, Creation of Man. The Lord created man from the earth and returned him to it again. He gave them a certain number of days and an appointed time, and he gave them authority over it. He clothed them with strength like his own and made them in his image. He put the fear of the God upon all flesh and gave him dominion over wild animals and birds. He gave mankind the ability to deliberate, and a tongue, eyes, and ears, and a heart to think with. And he filled them with the skill of comprehension, and showed them good and evil. He set his eye upon their hearts to show them the majesty of his works. They will praise his holy name so as to fully describe the majesty of his works. The covenant with Israel. He added knowledge to them and gave them the law of life as a heritage. He established an eternal covenant with them, and he showed his judgments to them. Their eyes saw his glorious majesty, and their ears heard his glorious voice. He said to them, Beware of all unrighteousness, and he commanded each of them concerning his neighbor. Their ways are before him continually. They will not be hidden from his eyes. He appointed a ruler for every nation, but Israel is the Lord's portion. All his works are as the sun before him, and his eyes are continually on their ways. Their wrongdoings are not hidden from him, and all their sins are before the Lord. A man's almsgiving is like a seal with him, and he will treasure the kindness of a man like the pupil of his eye. After this he will arise and repay them, and he will reward them with retribution on their head. But he provides a return to those who repent, and he comforts those who lack endurance. Return to the Lord. Turn to the Lord and forsake your sins, and pray in his presence and reduce your offense. Return to the Most High and turn away from wrongdoing, and hate an abomination exceedingly. Who will praise the Most High in Hades? As do the living and those who give thanks. Thanksgiving ceases from a dead man since he is no longer alive. Only the living and the healthy will praise the Lord. How great the mercy of the Lord is, and his atonement for those who turn to him. For all things are not possible for man, because the Son of Man is not immortal. What shines brighter than the sun? Yet this light fails. So will flesh and blood when it lays evil to heart. He examines the host of the highest heaven, but all men are earth and ashes. Chapter 18. A song of God's mercy. He who lives forever created everything. The Lord alone will be declared righteous. He permitted no one to proclaim his works, for who can trace out his mighty works? Who will measure his majestic power with a number, and who will add to this measure while describing his mercies? There is no one who can add or subtract, and there is no one who can stretch out the wonders of the Lord. When a man completes his search, then he starts over, and when he stops, he will still be perplexed. What is man, and what use is he? What is his good, and what is his evil? The number of a man's days is considered great, if he is 100 years old, but like a drop of water from the sea and a grain of sand. So are a few years within the day of eternity. Therefore the Lord is patient with them and pours out his mercy upon them. He sees and knows their end, and it is evil. Therefore he makes full atonement for them. The mercy of a man is upon his neighbor, but the mercy of the Lord is upon all flesh, rebuking, training, and teaching them, like a shepherd who returns his flock to the fold. He has mercy on those who receive his discipline, and who are eager for his judgments. Take care to be wise. My son, do not bring disgrace to the good you have done, nor cause grief by your words when you make a gift. Does not you give relief from the burning heat? In the same way, a word is better than a gift. Indeed, is not a word better than a fitting gift? and both are found in a gracious man. A fool will insult and disgrace someone, and the gift of an envious man makes his eyes waste away. Before you speak, learn, and before you get sick, take care of your health. Before you make a judgment, examine yourself closely, and in your hour of visitation you will find atonement. Before you become sick, humble yourself, and at the time of shining, prove your conversion. Let nothing hinder you from paying a vow properly, and do not wait until death to become righteous. Before you make a vow, prepare yourself, and do not become like a man who tempts the Lord. Remember his anger on the day of your death, at the time of vengeance, when he turns his face away. Remember the time of hunger and the time of plenty, and poverty and need in the days of wealth. From morning until evening, time changes, and all things are soon in the presence of the Lord. A wise man will have the fear of the Lord in everything he does, and in these days of sin, he will guard against wrongdoing. Every intelligent man knows wisdom and praises the one who finds her. The wise in words, they also make others wise, for they pour forth accurate proverbs. Self-control. Do not walk after your own desires, but restrain your appetites. If you fill your soul with the desire of pleasure, it will make you the laughingstock of your enemies. Do not rejoice in great luxury, lest you become needy by its expense. Do not become a beggar by feasting on borrowed money when you have nothing in your purse. Chapter 19, The Reckless Soul. A working man who is a drunk will not become wealthy, and he who despises small things will fail little by little. Wine and women will draw away intelligent men, and he who joins himself to prostitutes shall become very reckless. Decay and worms will inherit him, and his reckless soul will be carried away. Don't gossip. He who trusts quickly is unwise in heart, and he who sins will err against his own soul. He who rejoices in evil shall be condemned, and he who hates talkativeness will sin less. Never repeat a word, and you will lose nothing at all. With friend or enemy, do not report it. And unless it is a sin for you, do not reveal it. For someone heard you and watched you, and in time will hate you. Have you heard a word? Let it die with you. Take courage, it will not burst you. But a fool will suffer birth pangs because of such a word, like a woman in labor with a child, like an arrow stuck in the flesh of a thigh. So is the word inside a fool. Question a friend, perhaps he did not do it, and if he did something, perhaps he will not repeat it. Question a neighbor, perhaps he did not say it, and if he did say it, may he not say it twice. Question a friend, for often it is slander, so do not believe every word. A person slips, but it is not his intention, for who has not sinned with his tongue? Question your neighbor before you threaten him, and give place to the law of the Most High. The wise and the clever. All wisdom is the fear of the Lord, and in all wisdom there is doing of the law. Wisdom is not the knowledge of evil, nor is there discernment in the counsel of sinners. There is cleverness that is an abomination, and there is a fool who is lacking in wisdom. Better is a man who is afraid but lacks understanding, than a man who abounds in discernment but transgresses the law. There is a precise cleverness which itself is unjust, and there is one who is offensive, that justice may be revealed. There is an evildoer bowing down in mourning, but inwardly he is full of deceit. He covers his face and pretends to be deaf, but when no one notices, he will take advantage of you. If he is prevented from sinning because he lacks strength, when he later finds an opportunity, he will do evil. A man will be known by his appearance, and a man of intelligence will be known by his countenance when you meet him. The clothing of a man and the way he laughs and walks give indication of who he is. Chapter 20, When to speak. There is a rebuke which is not timely, and there is he who is silent but has discernment. How much better it is to rebuke than to seethe with anger. He who confesses his fault will be kept from loss, like the desire of a eunuch to violate a maiden. So is the man who executes justice by violence. There is a man who is silent but is found to be wise, and there is a man who is hateful because he talks too much. There is a man who is silent because he has no answer, and there is a man who is silent because he knows when to speak. A wise man will keep silent until it is the right time to speak, but an arrogant and undiscerning man will speak out of turn. The man who talks too much will be detested, and the man who stands on his rights will be hated. Buying and selling. There is prosperity in the midst of adversities, but there is also a sum realized by a sale for a loss. There is a gift that will not profit you, and there is a gift where the repayment is double. There is a loss because of glory, and there is a man who raises his head for a humble state. There is a man who buys much with little, but pays for it sevenfold. A wise man will make himself beloved through his words, but the kindness of fools will be forgotten. The gift of a senseless man will not benefit you, for his eyes are on many instead of one. He will give little, but insult much, and he will open his mouth like a herald. Today he will lend, but tomorrow he will demand it back. Such a man is hateful. A man without grace. A fool will say, I have no friend, and I get no thanks for my good deeds. Those who eat my bread are worthless in their speech. How many will laugh scornfully at him, and how often? A slip on the ground is better than a slip of the tongue. Thus the downfall of evil will come speedily. A man without grace is like a story told at the wrong time. It will continue on the lips of the ignorant. A parable from the lips of a fool will be rejected, for he does not tell it at his proper time. Commentary on sinners. There is one who is hindered from sinning because of his poverty. So when he rests, he will not be pierced with sorrow. There is one who may lose his life through shame, or lose it because of his foolish countenance. There is one who makes a promise to a friend because of shame, and needlessly gains him as an enemy. A lie is an evil disgrace in a man. It will continue on his lips of the ignorant. A thief is preferable to a continual liar. Both, however, will inherit destruction. The character of a liar brings dishonor, and his shame is continually with him. Ways of the wise. A wise man will advance himself with his words, and a man with discernment will please great men. A man who works the earth will raise up his harvest, and he who pleases great men will atone for wrongdoing. Presents and gifts blind the eyes of the wise, and like a muzzle on the mouth they turn aside rebukes. Wisdom hidden and unseen treasure, what profit is there in either of them? Better is a man who hides his foolishness than a man who hides his wisdom. Chapter 21. Flee from sin. My son, have you sinned? No longer add to them, but pray about your former sins. Flee from sin as you would from the presence of a snake, for if you approach it, it will bite you. Its teeth are like lions' teeth, destroying the souls of men. All lawlessness is like a two-edged sword, for there is no healing from its wound. Panic and violence will lay waste to wealth. Likewise, a house of an arrogant man will be laid waste. The prayer of a poor man goes from his mouth to God's ears, and his judgment comes speedily. Whoever hates rebuke walks in the steps of a sinner, but he who fears the Lord will return to him in his heart. A man powerful in speech is known from afar, but an intelligent man knows when he slips. He who builds his house with another people's money is like a man who gathers his stones in a storm. The assembly of the lawless is like a bundle of kindling, whose end is a flame of fire. The way of sinners is paved with stones, but at its end is the pit of Hades. Wise or foolish? He who keeps the law controls his thoughts. The end result of the fear of the Lord is wisdom. He who is not astute cannot be taught, but there is an astuteness that increases bitterness. The knowledge of a wise man is like a flood, and his counsel will flow abundantly as a fountain of life. The inner workings of a fool are like a broken vessel, for he will not hold onto any knowledge. If a man of understanding hears a wise word, he will praise it and add to it. But if a self-indulgent man hears it, it displeases him, and he turns his back on it. The explanation of a fool is like a burden on a journey, but grace will be on the lips of an intelligent man. The utterance of a sensible person will be sought in the assembly, and they will ponder his words in their hearts. Like a house that has disappeared, so is the wisdom to a fool, and the knowledge of a foolish man is words, and will not stand up to examination. To a foolish man instruction is like chains on the feet, and like handcuffs on the right hand. A fool raises his voice when he laughs, but to an astute man an astute man will smile quietly with some hesitation. To a wise man, instruction is like a golden ornament, and like a bracelet on the right arm. The foot of a fool quickly enters a house, but a man with much experience will stand respectfully outside. A man without discernment peers into a house from the door, and a well-educated man will stand outside. A man shows his lack of education when he listens at the door, but a prudent man will be grieved by this disgrace. The lips of the unwise will describe things in detail, but the words of the prudent will balance the scale. The heart of fools is in their mouth, but the mouth of the wise is in their heart. When an ungodly man curses Satan, he curses his own soul. The whisperer defiles his own soul and will be hated in his own neighborhood. Chapter 22. A lazy man may be compared to a filthy stone. I want to read the note to chapter 21:27. When an ungodly man curses Satan, he curses his own soul. Okay, the note says here, Jude 9 also warns against rebuking Satan, instead instructing us to say, "The Lord rebuke you." See also Zechariah 3:4, 3:2, "The Lord rebuke you." Okay, so that's what we have to do. The Lord rebuke you. Now, chapter 22. A lazy man may be compared to a filthy stone, and everyone hisses at his neighbor at his dishonor. A lazy man may be compared to the filth of manure. Everyone who picks it up will shake it off his hand. A father's disgrace. The disgrace of a father is begetting an undisciplined son, and a foolish daughter is born to his loss. A sensible daughter will bring an inheritance to her husband, but a shameful one is a grief to her father, and an arrogant daughter shames both father and husband, and she will be dishonored by both. An ill-timed statement is like mournful music, but the chastising and instruction of wisdom are always timely. The fool. He who teaches a fool is like one who glues pottery together, or like trying to arouse one from sound sleep. He who tells something to a fool tells it to a drowsy man, and at the end he will say, "What is it?" If children live honestly and have wherewithal, they shall cover the basis of their parents. But children being haughty through disdain and want of nurture, stain in the nobility of their kindred. Weep for a dead man, for he left the light behind, but weep over a fool, for he left intelligence behind. Weep gladly for a dead man, because he is at rest, but the life of a fool is worse than death. Mourning for a dead man lasts 7 days, but mourning for a fool or an ungodly man lasts all his life. Do not hold a conversation with a fool, and do not visit with a senseless man. Beware of him so as to avoid trouble, and you will not be defiled when he shakes himself off. Stay away from him, and you will find rest, and not be exhausted by his insanity. What will be heavier than lead? And what will be his name but fool? Sand, salt, and a piece of iron are easier to bear than a senseless man. A wooden beam bound together in a building will not be broken loose in an earthquake, so a heart strengthened by reasonable counsel will not be afraid in a crisis. A heart settled on intelligent thought is like a plaster decorated on a smooth wall, as fences set on a high place will not stand firm against the wind. So a cowardly heart in the thought of a fool cannot stand firm against any kind of fear. Building friendships. He who pokes his eye will cause tears to fall, and he who pierces a heart reveals its feeling. Throwing a rock at birds scares them away, and disgracing a friend will break up a friendship. If you draw a sword against a friend, do not despair, for a restoration of friendship is possible. If you open your mouth against a friend, do not worry, for reconciliation is possible. But as for reviling and arrogance, or revealing secrets, or a treacherous blow, with behavior like this, any friend will flee. Gain your neighbor's trust when he is poor, so you may be fulfilled with him when he prospers. Stand by him in his time of trouble, that when he gets his inheritance, you may share it with him. As the smoke and vapor of a furnace precede a fire, so abuses precede bloodshed. I will not be ashamed to shelter a friend, and I will not hide from his face. If anything bad happens to me because of him, everyone who hears about it will be aware of him. He will set a guard over my mouth. Who will set a guard over my mouth and a prudent seal over my lips, that I may not fall because of them, and that my tongue may not destroy me? Chapter 23. A prayer for wisdom. O Lord, Father and Master of my life, do not leave me to their counsel, nor let me fall because of them. Who will set whips over my thoughts and a discipline over my heart, a discipline of wisdom over my heart, so they may not spare me in my errors, nor neglect me in my sins, lest my mistakes be multiplied and my sins abound. Then I would not fall before my adversaries, and my enemy would not rejoice over me. O Lord, Father, and the God of my life, do not give me haughty eyes, but turn me away from evil desire. Do not let gluttony or lust overcome me. Do not give me up to shameless soul. Do not give me up to a shameless soul. Warning to children. My children, hear the teaching of my mouth, for he who keeps it will not be conquered. A sinner will be overtaken by his lips, and a slanderer and arrogant man will be made to stumble by them. Do not accustom your mouth to vows, nor make a habit of using the name of the Holy One, for as a servant who is continually beaten will not lack bruises, so also he who makes a vow and continually names the Holy One will never be cleansed from sin. A man who swears many oaths will be filled with lawlessness, and that plague will not depart from his house. If he offends, his sin will be on him, and he overlooked it, he has sinned doubly. If he swears in vain, he will not be declared righteous, for his house will be filled with trouble. There is a way of speaking comparable to death, may not be found in the inheritance of Jacob, for all these things will be far from the godly. They will not be involved in sin. Do not accustom your mouth to lewd expressions, for this is sinful speech. Remember your father and mother when you sit in council with great men, lest you forget yourself in their presence, and by habit act foolishly. Then you will wish you had never been born, and you will curse the day of your birth. A man accustomed to abusive words will never discipline himself as long as he lives. Men of sin. 2 kinds of men multiply sins, and a third kind will bring down wrath. A soul heated like a burning fire will not be quenched until it is consumed. A man whose whole body is given to fornication will not cease until the fire burns out. To a man who is a fornicator, all bread is sweet. He will not grow weary until he dies. A man who transgresses against his marriage bed says to himself, who sees me? Darkness encircles me. The walls of my house hide me, and no one sees me. Why should I be afraid? The Most High will not remember my sins. His fear is in the eyes of men. He does not know that the eyes of the Lord are 10,000 times brighter than the sun, and look upon all the ways of men, and observe even the secret places before all things were created. Everything was known to him, and the end of all things is also known to him. This adulterer will be punished in the city streets, and where he does not suspect it, he will be seized. Women of sin. So also the woman who forsook her husband and brought in an heir by another man, for she first disobeyed the law of the Most High, and second, she transgressed against her husband, and third, in her fornication she committed adultery, and bore children by a stranger. She will be brought before the assembly, and there shall be a visitation of her children, and her children will not take root, and her branches will not bear fruit. She will leave behind her memory as a curse, and her disgrace will not be blotted out. Those left behind will know there is nothing better than the fear of the Lord, and there is nothing sweeter than to give heed to the Lord's commandment. Chapter 24. In praise of wisdom. Wisdom will praise herself, and in the midst of her people she will boast. In the assembly of the Most High she will open her mouth, and boast in the presence of his host. I came forth from the mouth of the Most High, and covered the earth like a mist. I pitched my tent in the high places, and my throne on the pillar of cloud. I alone encircled the ring of heaven, and I walked in the depths of the abyss, in the waves of the sea, in all the earth, and in every people and nation I have gained a possession. With all these I have sought a place to rest. In what inheritance will I lodge? Then the Creator of all things commanded me, and he who created me gave me a place to live. He said, pitch your tent in Jacob and receive an inheritance in Israel. Before the age he created me from the beginning, and in the age to come I will not cease. I serve before him in his holy tabernacle. Therefore I am established in Zion. In the beloved city likewise he gives me rest, and my authority is in Jerusalem. I am firmly rooted among an honored people, among the Lord's portion, his inheritance. Like a cedar tree I was raised on high in Lebanon, like a cypress tree in the mountains of Hermon. I was exalted like a palm tree in En Gedi, and like rose bushes in Jericho. I was exalted like a beautiful olive tree in the plain, and grew tall like a plane tree. I gave forth the fragrance of aromatic spices, like cinnamon and camel thorn, and I spread a fragrance like choice myrrh, and like galbanum, onyx, and oil of myrrh, and like the fragrance of frankincense in the tabernacle. I spread forth my branches like a terebinth tree, and my branches were glory and grace. I yield grace like a vine, and my flowers produce the fruit of glory and riches. I am the mother of fair love and fear and knowledge and holy hope. I therefore, being eternal, am given to all my children who are named by him. Come to me, you who desire me, and take your fill of my fruits, for the remembrance of me is sweeter than honey, and my inheritance is sweeter than the honeycomb. Those who eat me will hunger for more, and those who drink me will thirst for more. He who obeys me will not be put to shame. Those who work with me will not sin. All this is the book of the covenant of the Most High. The law of Moses commanded us, the inheritance of the congregations of Jacob. Faint not to be strong in the Lord, that he may confirm you, cleave unto him, for the Lord Almighty is God alone, and beside him there is no other Savior. This law fills men with wisdom, like the Fishon and the Tigris at the time of firstfruits, and it fills them with understanding, like the Euphrates and the Jordan at the time of harvest. This law shines forth instruction like light, like the Gihon in the days of vintage. As the first man did not know wisdom perfectly, so the last man has not searched out her depths, for her thoughts are deeper than the sea, and her counsel than the great abyss. I went forth like a canal from a river, and like an aqueduct into a garden. I said, I will water my garden and drench the garden beds. And behold, my canal became a river, and my river became a sea. I will yet make instruction shine like the morning, and I will make it shine far away. I will yet pour forth teaching like prophecy, and I will leave it behind for future generations. As you can see, I have not labored for myself alone, but for all who seek wisdom. Chapter 25. Numbered Sayings. There are 3 things beautiful to see, and they are beautiful before the Lord and men: the harmony of brothers' friendship between neighbors, and a wife and husband well adjusted together. My soul hates 3 kinds of men, and I am very offended with their lifestyle: a beggar who is arrogant, a rich man who is a liar, and an old man who is an adulterer and lacks understanding. Wisdom of the aged. If you have gathered nothing in your youth, how can you find anything in your old age? Judgment is like beauty in gray hair, and in elders it is to know counsel. Wisdom is like the beauty of old men, and in those who are glorious it is understanding and counsel. The crown of old men is great experience, for their boast is the fear of the Lord. 10 blessings. In my heart I have blessed 9 suppositions, and I will mention a 10th. A father who dwells in his children, a man who lives to see the downfall of his enemies, a husband who is blessed to live with an understanding wife, a man who does not slip with his tongue, a man who has not served a man less worthy than himself, a man who is blessed to find discernment, a man who is blessed to speak to ears that listen, a man who has found wisdom. How blessed he is! And there is no one greater than a man who fears the Lord. The fear of the Lord is more important than anything. To what will it be compared? An evil wife. Any wound, but not a wound of a heart. Any evil, but not an evil wife. Any misery, but not the misery of those who hate me. Any vengeance, but not the vengeance of enemies. There is no head worse than the head of a snake, and there is no anger worse than the anger of an enemy. I would rather live with a lion or a snake than with an evil wife. The evil of a wife changes her appearance, and darkens her face like that of a bear. Her husband will go to his neighbors for meals, and he sighs bitterly and involuntarily. Any evil is small compared to the evil of a wife. May the portion of the sinner fall upon her. A sandy hill of ascent for the feet of an old man, such is an overly talkative wife to a quiet husband. Do not fall for the beauty of a woman, and do not long for her beauty. There is wrath, insolence, and great shame when a wife supports her husband. A downcast heart, a sad face, and a wounded heart. are caused by an evil wife. Drooping hands and weakened knees are caused by a wife who does not make her husband happy. Sin had its beginning from a wife, and because of her we all die. Do not give water an outlet, nor boldness to an evil wife. If she does not follow your good leadership, cut her off from yourself. Chapter 26, A Good Wife. Happy is the husband of a good wife, the number of his days will be doubled. A courageous wife makes her husband glad, and his years will be full of peace. A good wife is a good portion, and she will be given in the portion of those who fear the Lord. The good heart of a rich or a poor man is a cheerful face at all times. Fallen womanhood. My heart fears because of 3 things, and I pray to God concerning the 4th. The slander of a city, the gathering of a mob, and a false accusation, all these are worse than death. There is also pain of heart and sorrow when a wife is jealous over another woman, and a tongue lashing makes it known to all. An evil wife is like an ox yoke that shakes to and fro, and to take hold of her is like grabbing a scorpion. A drunken wife is very wrathful, and she will not conceal her shame. The fornication of a wife will be known, and her haughty looks and her eyelids. By her haughty looks and her eyelids. Keep strong watch over a headstrong daughter, lest she find some liberty and make the most of it. Be on guard against her shameless eye, and do not be amazed if she trespasses against you. Her mouth will open like a thirsty traveler's, and drink from any water nearby. She will sit down before every tent peg, and open her quiver to any arrow. A blessed wife. A wife's grace will delight her husband, and her skill will put fat on his bones. A silent wife is a gift from the Lord, and there is nothing worth so much as a disciplined soul. And there is no scale adequate to weigh a self-controlled soul. Like the sun rising in the Lord's heaven is the beauty of a good wife in the ordering of her house. Like a lamp shining on a holy lampstand is the beauty of a countenance in the prime of life. Beautiful feet with a steady heart are like golden pillars on a silver base. 3 griefs. My heart is grieved by 2 things, and because of a third, anger arises within me. A man of war in want because of poverty, men of intelligence who suffer contempt, and a man who turns back from righteousness to sin. The Lord will prepare this one for the sword. The merchant. With difficulty a merchant will deliver himself from wrongdoing, and a peddler will not be acquitted from sin. And we'll continue with chapter 27 of Wisdom of Sirach tomorrow. And now we'll continue with the Revelation, chapter 12. The woman, her child, and the dragon. Now a great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and on her head a garland of 12 stars. Then, being with child, she cried out in labor and in pain to give birth. The child. And another sign appeared in heaven. Behold, a great fiery red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and 7 diadems on his heads. His tail drew a third of the stars of heaven and threw them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman who was ready to give birth, to devour her child as soon as it was born. She bore a male child who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron, and her child was caught up to God and his throne. Then the woman fled into the wilderness, where she has a place prepared by God, that they should feed her there 1,260 days. War in heaven. And war broke out in heaven. Michael and his angels fought with the dragon, and the dragon and his angels fought, but they did not prevail, nor was a place found for them in heaven any longer. So the great dragon was cast out, that serpent of old, called the devil and Satan, who deceives the whole world. He was cast to the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. Then I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, Now salvation and strength and the kingdom of our God and the power of his Christ have come, for the accuser of our brethren, who accused them before our God day and night, has been cast down, and they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony, and they did not love their lives to the death. Therefore rejoice, O heavens, and you who dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and the sea, for their devil has come down to you, having great wrath, because he knows that he has a short time. War on earth. Now when the dragon saw that he had been cast to the earth, he persecuted the woman who gave birth to the male child, but the woman was given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness to her place where she is nourished for a times and half a time, from the presence of the serpent. So the serpent spewed water out of his mouth like a flood after the woman, that he might cause her to be carried away by the flood. But the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened its mouth and swallowed up the flood which the dragon had spewed out of his mouth. And the dragon was enraged with the woman, and he went to make war with the rest of her offspring, who keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. Now I'll read you the notes to chapter 12. These verses begin an extensive parenthesis in the center of Revelation dealing with the conflict between the church, the woman here is the church, and the powers of evil. The great sign in heaven, the woman, is either the Theotokos, that means the mother of God, or true Israel, the church. Orthodoxy sees the mother of God, Theotokos, as a perfect symbol of Israel and the church. She is the antithesis of the harlot of chapter 17, for she is radiant bride, adorned with splendor. The 12 stars indicate the 12 tribes and possibly the 12 apostles, and the moon under her feet symbolizes her preeminent role over creation. Her birth giving a male child is that of the Messiah, Jesus Christ. She bears other offspring as well, and likely reference to the church, the believers in Christ. The dragon is clearly identified as Satan, chapter 12:9. A third of the stars of heaven is usually interpreted to mean that Satan drew a third of the angels with him when he fell. His intention is to destroy the Messiah. 12:5, true Israel brings forth Christ, who after completing of his saving work ascends to heaven. 12:6, the flight of the women, Mary woman, refers to the flight of Jerusalem, the Jerusalem church embodying true Israel, to Pella, before the outbreak of the Roman war. It illustrates there is no place for the church in this age. The 1,260 days, or 3.5 years, is a classic period of apocalyptic woe. As bad as it is temporary, not the end of things. Chapter 12, 7-12. This passage begins the interlude describing Satan's role in stimulating persecution of the church. The war with Michael the archangel and the good angels is usually interpreted to picture an event before the creation of the world. However, the context places it just before the end of the world. Satan has been accusing the brethren, the Christians, and his downfall presages the consummation of the kingdom. Satan is overcome by Christ's self-sacrifice and that of the martyrs, those who do not love their lives to the death. The short time Satan has is the period of tribulation just prior to the end. Verse 13-16, chapter 12, verse 13-16, Satan hates Christ and his mother, the Virgin Mary, who was saved by the inspiration of the angel who told Joseph to run into Egypt, that is, the Archangel Gabriel. Likewise, Satan hates Christ and the church and attacks the one through the other, since they are identified. One of his first activities is to persecute true Israel, the church. The wings of a great eagle refers to the original Exodus, as the flood may also be the threat of drowning in the Red Sea. However, Satan is unable to prevail. The Jewish church safely completed its Exodus and is preserved during its apocalyptic period, and the church in general will be preserved. The gates of hell cannot prevail against her, for Jesus' warnings about his flights. Satan then turns his attention to the rest of true Israel's offspring, obviously the Gentile church, which has inherited from her both the commandments of God and the faith in Christ. And we'll continue with chapter 13 and the notes to that tomorrow. Thank you for your support, and God bless you. If you'd like to join me on my Patreon account, you will hear content not covered by mainstream media. These riveting stories will be based on my research, and I will state my opinions and give my personal insight on diverse and controversial subjects and world events not covered by mainstream media, and not supported by YouTube guidelines. So whatever I have on my Patreon, most of those will not be on my YouTube channel. Please consider becoming a member today. More of the most significant and important videos will be on my Patreon channel. Your support helps me to continue my research and keeps this YouTube channel alive. And we depend on your support, your generous charity, because we help economically challenged families here in Athens, Greece, in Kapota, and we also help the young generation with university tuition and the community around our church. Thank you.